Welcome to episode 4 of the Let 'em Know podcast. I'm TK. In this episode, we're talking about the love them or leave them. These guys might be enticing to your fantasy rosters, but they might disappoint you as well. Stay tuned as we dive right into these players, and let's get it underway. All right, episode 4. Welcome back. We're going to do the love them but leave them, like we said in the intro there. But first and foremost, how are we doing today, Benny?
Man, it's a beautiful day, Smoke finally cleared, we're not breathing in that Canada pine tree fire. It's great, man. How you doing? How you been?
Good, good. Just ready to get talk some more fantasy. I can't get enough of fantasy football. Um, Smokes kind of put us inside and lets me look at more stats more than I usually
Just
do.
those numbers.
So,
Yeah.
but let's get into it. We'll start with you, man. Number 5 for you.
Number five for me. Okay, so I'm taking Chris Godwin, ADP 52, wide receiver 28. He's rostered at 96% clip. Don't buy him on the slide. Don't tuck yourself into it. Don't let the clock tick down and pressure yourself into taking Chris Godwin. 142 targets, 104 catches, 1,000 yards. You're going to think, man, great year. He's going to do it again. He does it every year. Wrong. He finished 96th in deep targets and 68 out of 82 in open rate. What that means is the boom plays, the big plays, all that, the stuff that leads to big points, all that stuff, he didn't fare very well in. And so his targets and all of his success was due to the fact that their offense was Brady throw the ball as much as you can. And that's all they did all year. So those numbers that are already bad are going to get worse because now he's attached to Baker Mayfield and Kyle Trask. There's not a coincidence that I'm wearing my Baker Mayfield undraftable shirt today. Whole offense is undraftable. Chris Godwin, don't take him. Save yourself the headache. Don't panic and take him. There's talent there. Look elsewhere. And if you're trying to, take a flyer on a wide receiver in that conference, stick to New Orleans, stick to Atlanta. Just do not touch this Bucks offense. You're gonna get burned. TK, how you feel?
Yeah, that QB room is a dumpster fire over there with Baker and Trask. Maybe you'll see some glimpse of Baker in his Rams days, a couple of games, maybe here or there. Chris Godwin might be breaking out for a couple of games. But other than that, Baker's always going to go down to what Baker usually does, unfortunately. He never lived up to his draft stock coming out of Cleveland. Yeah, I'm going to get a lot of Browns fans on me saying he took him to the playoffs, but I don't see Baker being on any of my fantasy teams from here going forward at all. With Chris Godwin, I'm also fading on that note. With Tom Brady only throwing him 3 TDs last year, I don't see those numbers going up. Even
No,
though
it's
even though they should target, he's a big body receiver. But then again, so is Mike Evans. So
yeah. Give me your number five. What are you thinking?
my number 5, I went a different route here. Um, Fantasy drafts, everybody loves rookies. I'm going with a rookie. At number 5, I got Dalton Kincaid. Uh, he's currently going over tight ends like Greg Dulcich and Sam Laporta, both guys I like better than Kincaid. Um, so I'm thinking Kincaid for the upcoming season. Dawson Knox is still there. Dawson Knox is going to take time and catches away still from Kincaid. Yes, Kincaid is a better route runner, but still those targets are going to go elsewhere as well. Um, and I'm going to stick to my guns by episode 3. Stephon Diggs wants the ball. Stephon Diggs is going to get the ball. Yeah. So they made it clear that they didn't do anything on the offensive side of the ball, especially just drafting him. Maybe we'll see Cook there. Maybe we won't. Who knows? We don't know what's going on with that situation. Now he wants to play with DeAndre Hopkins. But I'm fading Kincaid for the upcoming season because usually it takes tight ends about 3 or 4 years in fantasy before they turn into that big star.
Yeah, I mean, everything they've said was they wanted to fill that like receiver role, and I don't see how slotting a tight end into that role really makes sense. I know he had a great career, some breakout games. He's not even my favorite tight end in the class. Um, yeah, I agree. I would definitely not Kincaid.
Yeah,
I
he,
agree.
he doesn't also have that big name power to him coming out, like kind of like Kyle Pitts did, or even this Bowers from Georgia did. So he kind of just went on the scene here recently and became, I wouldn't even call it a household name. But moving to your number four, who do you got at number four?
So we're staying in the tight end family. We're gonna go Evan Ingram, ADP 95, tight end 8, rostered at 91%. Don't trick yourself. Don't think for a second that Evan Ingram is this great tight end. He's not. He is not. Do not forget the Giants years. He had 766 yards, 4 touchdowns last year. That's his best season since his rookie year, 2017. It's been that long, folks. And just, I mean, it could be the Philly fan in me. It really could. I could be biased. But now Calvin Ridley's there. He's going to be competing with Christian Kirk, Zay Jones, Ridley, and ETN for targets. If you want to take a flyer on Trevor Lawrence because you believe in him that much, that's fine. Just get one of those guys. Don't don't get your target shares with Evan Ingram. I facing 30th hardest schedule against tight end projected this year. I just think there's talent elsewhere. I think the tight end clump is. I mean, if it's not Kelsey, it's relative. Um, just yeah, don't hit your wagon to Evan Ingram. Don't forget the Giants years of Evan Ingram.
I
TK, how would you?
I I I'm definitely on the opposite spectrum there. I think Evan Ingram is going to be your at least a top five, especially in PPR tight end. I have Evan Ingram right now. He sat fifth among tight ends last year. I'm looking at the tight ends below him that finished below him. You got Higby, Fryermuth, and Cole Komet. And below that, Taysom Hill and Dalton Schultz. So I don't see those guys beating him out this year. Maybe Fryermuth if Kenny Pickett slings the rock a little bit more and a little bit more accurate. I I don't see anybody beating out Evan Ingram. Yeah, Ridley's going to take targets away, but having a tight end like him, uh, lining up with linebackers, he's a little bit smaller of a tight end, I believe. So he is a mismatch for those linebackers. So I like Ingram actually as a top five tight end, and I believe that's what you want in fantasy in those all the positions is you want a top five guy on your roster.
Do you remember Dalton Schultz being tight end 3 a couple years ago? Do you remember that?
He yeah,
COVID year. Yeah. Not I mean, just such a forgettable player, but what a good year. I mean,
and
I like I said, man, a tight end can surprise you. I'm just not willing to attach my season to Evan Ingram in any way, shape, or form.
yeah, you brought up the New York years, but really did Daniel Jones really wow you? Did he as a QB? I know he came on late
For
last
Vic.
season, but New York never had really a QB. I feel like he finally found his QB in home in Jacksonville. That offense is looking kind of scary.
Yeah, I mean, could be true, but I just I don't think it's going to translate. I don't think there's going to be year after year, and I do agree with you that offense is going to be fun. It really is. But I want pieces of it. I don't want that piece. Um, so what do you got cooking up for number 4? What are we looking at?
So my number four, I'm looking how I picked my guys is basically I'm looking at ADPs and certain guys caught my eye on why they're getting drafted, and this is one of those guys I'm shaking my head at looking at where this guy's getting drafted. My number 4 is Kadarius Toney, ADP 91 overall, wide receiver 38. This guy hasn't played past 10 games yet in his career. He's maybe had a handful of games while he was at the Giants that were good games. Again, another ex Giant player. But I feel like the only reason why he is ranked so high is the Mahomes effect. Mahomes has no one at receiver, it seems like. He keeps producing. But we all know one thing and who's getting the ball there, and it's Travis Kelsey and not Kadarius Toney. Until Kadarius Toney shows me he can stay healthy for a full season, I can actually look at a full season of stats for this guy, be like, okay, he's not that bad or he's not this good. I am not drafting him where he sits currently. I'm, be honest, fading him completely out. He's already a guy that's crossed off on my book. It's a do not draft. Because why waste a roster spot who's only going to play 9 or 10 games for you?
Yeah, I don't know why people do it every year. His sample size is 2, 3 games in New York, and then he gets bounced out of New York. New York notoriously hasn't had a receiver. I mean, they paid Kenny Galladay $70 million, and they literally lose Kadarius Toney for nothing. Like they sent him for like a very late round pick. Chiefs get him. He doesn't really play. They talk about how awesome he is in practice, and then he has one touchdown in the Super Bowl on a wide open screenplay. But we always hear about Kadarius Toney and all this stuff, and I just him, Sky Moore, and the rookie that they drafted, Rice. They're gonna get targets, sure, but like, is Kadarius Toney gonna be on the field? Is he gonna be healthy? Uh,
Hey,
Hamstring falls
I,
off every season.
I guess if you would ask me, hey, TK, do you want to play 9 games in the NFL and win a Super Bowl ring? I mean, I'd probably say sign
Could
me
do.
up too. But for fantasy, I'm not signing him up for any of my teams.
No, shouldn't be drafted at all.
But
Maybe late round, like Dynasty League, super late round, best ball if that's what you're into. Um,
just leave an IR spot on for him
yeah, yeah, just
because
leave the
he's
light on.
he's gonna be there like Motel 6. So
Yeah.
number 3 for you.
Number three is this one hurts. It's gonna be James Conner, hometown boy. We love him. Everybody loves him. Great guy. Uh, ADP 87, RB 28, rostered at 95%. There's a lot of reasons to draft him, and I understand the reasons. I'm gonna list them out. You're gonna think, wow, I should go draft this guy. 5 games at 90% snap rate last year. RB4 in his last 8 games. You know how I feel about the playoff weeks. Those are the money weeks. It's a lot of value there. I mean, he's the workhorse. We get it. We get it. The bad things. He missed 4 games last year, and that's not counting the 3 games that he left early. And if you look at his whole career, his games played don't always reflect him actually playing because he leaves games a lot. And it's a shame. It's a shame because everybody remembers the year he took over for Le'Veon Bell. Le'Veon's famous, sit out year. And man, he was awesome. He was so awesome. And because of that, as long as you have a Steelers fan in your league, as long as you have somebody who had him rostered during that season, they're going to take him. And I honestly think this is the year not to take him. And like I said, everything's pointing to taking him. He's going to be a workhorse. He's going to be a workhorse. There's no backup for him. There's no like there's just no reason why he can't handle all this stuff. Well, his injuries show that he can't handle the workload, and there's a reason there's no backups in place. Arizona's a dumpster fire. They don't want to be good. They don't want to have a backup for if he goes down. They don't want to have the quarterback this year. Like They are going to be so bad, possibly the worst team in the league. I don't know how Buda Baker's still on the roster. And on top of all of this is the dreaded running back age cliff. He's coming up on 28 years old. It's it's inevitable. I mean, you could argue, well, he's going to get a lot of play in the pass game. If you want to sit here and bang the drum for Colt McCoy, and then after Colt McCoy goes down in 2 weeks, whoever his backup is, you go ahead and do that.
I,
I'm not going to do that.
I'm
I'm
banging.
not going
I'm banging the drum right now, Baney. I'm banging the drum because I am not going against the hometown kid at all.
to. It hurts. It does. It hurts. But I just listen. We're talking about the Canadian wildfires and all the smoke. By the end of the year, we're going to be choking on the Arizona Cardinals wildfire dumpster
I
fire.
agree. It's going to
It's
be a fire sale
so
over
bad.
there. But as far as fantasy goes, sometimes you want those guys on those terrible teams because why? They're going to get those trash TDs at the end of games. They're going to get those extra dump downs. And I feel like James Conner's prime for that. He had 183 attempts rushing last year, 19th among running backs for fantasy. He averaged 15 points a game for fantasy, and just below Kenneth Walker, who was 18, who had 228 attempts. There's a big discrepancy there for attempts for carries you're going to see. And like I said, those targets are going to go up as well with Colt McCoy because Colt McCoy is not an accurate passer downfield.
So I guess if you love James Conner, just let somebody else draft him. Let somebody else take him, and you take a value pick there, and then mid-season when they're tired of staring at him on his IR because
Listen,
he's, missed 7 games,
uh,
just, pick him off for the low and then ride out the last 8 games of the season on your high horse. Do that. Just don't waste draft capital on him. Take somebody else, fill your spot out, and then yeah, get him low if you can get him low,
well, there. Okay, there you go. That's what I was gonna wrap around
I
here.
think that's the way to
I'm
play it. That's the way to play it, I think.
I'm not taking him over, say, Kenneth Walker per se. Okay, but when push comes to shove, maybe I am taking over DeAndre Swift. I don't like Swift whatsoever either. Another guy who can't stay healthy, and kind of like Kadarius Toney, you see glimpses of how good he can be, but again, he doesn't stay on the field. So I'm drafting James Conner over DeAndre Swift and guys like David Montgomery, to be honest. But
Fair take. What do you got cooking up for the trace slot?
so number 3 here for me, going back to the same team we already talked about, I got Travis Etienne at number 3. ADP 28, running back 14. Start off, I think Etienne is a stud running back. He can be a stud running back. He shows the ability to be a workhorse. But, and that's a huge but, with Doug Peterson, he's known for running back by committee. He's going to do it in Jacksonville, just like how he did in Philly. He always carries about 4 running backs on his roster. Jacksonville's suiting up for that as well. And if you don't believe me, the Jags took Tank Bigsby in the second round this year in the draft with their second round pick. And if they thought Etienne was going to be a workhorse, nah, it ain't going to happen there in Jacksonville, especially with him being a little injury prone. Um, you got to think Doug Peterson's going to double down on that running back by committee and save him as long as he can because he is a young talent coming in, and they're trying to preserve him for years to come there in Jacksonville.
Yeah, ETN was this close to making my list as well. And it just comes down to the injury stuff. And I think the only thing that really saved him early on was the fact that, yeah, he's Trevor's guy. Um, Not a fan. I'm really not a fan. Um, he's a player that I mean, I faded last year and I was banging the drum last year. I'm gonna keep banging the drum. Yeah, Nick Cannon on drumline on ETN. Don't don't draft him. I You can talk yourself into the PPR stuff with them. You can talk yourself into the Jaguars offense. Yeah, Tank Bigsby, backup plan. It's already in effect.
So that's my number 3. Going back here for number 2 for you, Baney. We have cooking at number 2 since I didn't agree with your last 2 already.
Um, prepared to not agree again. This is a player that everybody loves. Everybody loves. Great football player. George Kittle. ADP 61. Tight end 4. Rostered in 98% clip. Okay? Like I said, great football player. Like, literally your prototypical run through a wall, do what you're told, play to the whistle football player. However, great football players don't always translate to fantasy production. And what I mean by that is his average points per game last year was 13.4 points per game. Okay? That is not entirely accurate. And I'm going to tell you why it's not accurate. Okay? So he had, so he had missed the first 2 weeks of the season. Okay? So first 2 weeks, and then you pair that with the bye week. Okay? Just for the sake of rostered weeks that wouldn't participate in points. So there's 3 weeks right there that you have to account for. Aside from that, he had 7 weeks where he finished with less than half of what his average points per week were. So that means 10 weeks that he was on your roster, you were getting no production. He had 2 weeks with 2 points, 1 week with 3 points. His peak outside of that was 7.7 points. Like, that's a lot of weeks to have the tight end 4 on your roster without actually producing tight end 4 points. So you can say, yeah, he had 11 touchdowns. That's great. But those are boom weeks that don't necessarily average out for an entire season. His 13.4 points per game is inflated. It's super inflated. And I mean, I guess you can say, great, like it looks like Purdy's going to play this year. It looks like Purdy's going to start the season off. All of the interviews Kittle's done, he's acted like Purdy's the only quarterback on the roster. That's good because if Purdy's not healthy, it's gonna be a lot of running the ball, and that's Kittle's biggest asset for a team, and his worst attribute for fantasy production is how good he actually blocks because it allows them to run the ball, it allows them to move the ball, but it doesn't necessarily mean that he's going to be used how you want him to be used because he's going to be on the field every play, but it doesn't necessarily translate into production. You saw the game against Seattle, he exploded. That's only 1 week. Like I said, 10 weeks he produced less than half of his fantasy points per game average. He's a great football player. He really is. But this is the part where you got to look at it and say, is it worth the draft value right there to get a guy who didn't show up for 10 weeks?
So I'm biting my tongue over here. Who you taking over Kittle besides Kelsey and Andrews in your draft?
And that's what's tough. So like I said, man, earlier is there's a tight end clump. And what I mean by that is, I mean, you might get somebody who's averaging, 8 to 10 points a week, then that's a home run. That's a miracle when you're thinking the guy across from you, if he doesn't have the top 3 guys, is putting up relatively close to what you're putting up. My thing is you can get somebody else at ADP 61 that keep you competitive, that'll keep you in better spirits than Kittle putting out 2 points, 3 points, and you're ripping your hair out because you watched him play the whole game. And I just it's tough, man. It's tough. McCaffrey is incredible. He's getting his 70 targets. Debo's gonna get fed the ball. Ayuk is slept on. 1,000 yards last year. He's gonna get the ball. Like it's tough, man. It's tough. And like I said, if Purdy's not good to go, it's gonna be a run fest. Um, I mean, you pray that Trey Lance isn't playing. Um, Trey Lance only has three more career touchdown passes than Christian McCaffrey. Did you know that?
I
It's
mean,
bad.
we need to have a bigger sample size as well out of Trey Lance. You can't just
Will you ever? Because he's never played a full season of football, even in college. Like this is who Trey Lance is. This is who they chose to take in that draft. And there's a reason Sam Darnold's on the roster. There's a reason they even got a
so
fourth quarterback on the roster. Like it's just I love the team. Potentially NFC champions. Like they're a great team. But like I said, for the ADP on Kittle, I think you can still get an elite wide receiver. I think you can still get somebody else that is going to give you more consistent points per week because
depending,
the 13 points is just not true. It's not true. It's just inflated by the touchdowns that he gave you.
but that's his value there. Is he's a red zone target, and that's what you want in fantasy. You want a red zone target. So Kittle's sitting at
So
number 3 tight end last season over Mark Andrews. He averaged more points than Mark Andrews, TJ Hawkinson, and Evan Ingram. He averaged 13.4, just below Travis Kelsey at 18.6, which Travis Kelsey is in a league of his own. We all know. But
we're talking.
basically, he's averaging the next best points for you. So if you're saying he's giving you a couple points here and there during the season, those guys have to be too. So maybe you fade the tight end, but everybody runs a one tight end league. So do you want a top 5 tight end in your roster? Or do you want to slide and get another, say, backup wide receiver, backup running back? That's going to be your choice to have. But for me, I want to make sure I'm getting a top 5 player in every position. And George Kittle's that.
You're getting top 5 points for 4 weeks of play. I hate to say it, but that's what it was. That was the reality
It's,
of it last year, and
yeah, he might be
it's
getting the 4 weeks of play, but looking at everybody else's numbers, they're doing a little bit worse. So I'm already ahead of the game.
yeah. What do you got? What's number two? What are we looking at?
So number 2 here, I'm gonna get bashed on this one. I've called this guy a fade since his college career. I'm gonna hear about it again. At number 2, I got Tua. I've been fading Tua ever since his college days. I called it before he even came out. He's gonna be injury prone. He still is in his career now with the Dolphins. ADP 91, QB 11. He finished 15th among QBs last year, 3,500 yards with 25 TDs. You're making Tua your main QB. You might want to come back around the next round and grab another one real quick. Uh, yes, his people will say his numbers are decent. He has two guys that he can throw a slant route to and take it to the house. So I believe you plug any decent, mediocre QB in there to maybe even say Aaron Rodgers, who just got to New York, that offense is going to be explosive. Um, with Hill and Waddle is incredible. I also believe he is one hit away from retirement. I do not wish that upon anyone. I'm just gonna get that out of the way. But even last year, he was contemplating his own retirement last year. Um, so unless the Dolphins can protect him and he can have more pocket awareness, get the ball out quick, go down, get out of bounds, whatever he's got to do, it's gonna be a long season for him as well. Again, but I am not going to put all my eggs in one basket for Tua. I won't do it. He'll be a backup at best for me in this upcoming fantasy season.
So there's the two and non. There's the two and non community. I'm a member of the two and not community. Um, everybody talks about the concussions. He hits his head, and the hands and how horrible that was for him last year. Well, the year before that, he broke his ribs, and then in college, people forget his hip like fell off. Like this isn't like this isn't new. The injury stuff's not new. Like it's a common theme, and yeah, I'm not a Tua guy, and yeah, I mean, there's just there's no reasoning besides the fact that they have great lethal weapons in Waddle and Hill. But I mean, they went and got a quarterback in free agency too. Like they have a backup plan already. Like it's if history repeats itself, they're ready for it because they know they had to wheel out Teddy Bridgewater and a team of who else to make up for this, and now they're already prepared to do that this year. And people, they talked about he started taking what jujitsu to help learn how to fall and stuff. Well, I listened to former NFL players say that it's too late to learn how to do this stuff. You should have already known how to do this stuff. You should have known how to take care of yourself at this level already. So if you haven't done that yet, you're not just gonna like once the fire is at your feet, you're not gonna just remember, hey, I gotta sprawl out. Like no, like your history's gonna repeat itself. And don't draft Tua. Just don't do it.
And I think his body's too far gone for that as well. So even if he is embracing some of those hits still hurt. So, but moving on here, who's your number one Batum?
So number one player to absolutely break up with this year in fantasy football. Leave him in the dust. Hate to do this to you. Corey Plett's best friend just got married recently. Great wedding. Congrats to you, buddy. Huge Seattle Seahawks fan. Um, my number one player not to take, Geno Smith. ADP 115, 115. QB 15. Rostered 91%. Okay? TK, I got a question for you.
Mm-hmm.
So, last year's football sweetheart, Geno Smith. Everybody loved him. How much do you think his stats last year accounted for his career stats?
Probably most of them.
Probably most of them. Um, let's see here. 11,200 yards passing in his career. Last year, 4,282. That's 38% of his career passing total from last year. Total touchdowns, 64. Last year, 30. That's 47%. Okay. So his entire career has been horrible. It's been so bad. And everybody knows that. Everybody knows it. They hold on to West Virginia Geno. It was incredible. All this stuff. It's not coming back. It was a glimpse. And to be honest with you, it was a year that maybe wouldn't have even been that talked about if the whole Russ thing didn't happen. And, like Pete Carroll's system was just great. Um, yeah, like let's just get into like the bad stuff. So he had was it 19 turnovers last year. Nobody talks about the turnovers. They're bad. His 8 fumbles, 11 interceptions, 7 of which came in the last 5 weeks. I've said it now on both podcasts. The last 5 weeks of the season are the money weeks. That's when you're in the playoffs. That's when you win. That's when Geno nosedive. That's when he showed his face. That's when it was Geno that we know. The career backup, the guy who just didn't make it. It was horrible. The last 5 weeks were so bad. Ran out of steam. 7 turnovers in 5 weeks. It's bad. It was really bad. And to be honest with you, his strength of schedule this year is 28th against the quarterback. There's not much room for it to improve. I mean, say, say you decide to fade me, oh, I didn't really take a quarterback. Geno's there. He had a great year. I talked myself into it. He might be decent the first 3 weeks. He might make you think you did something. He plays the Rams, the Lions, and the Panthers his first 3 weeks. You might be on your high horse. After that, the schedule is going to hit him harder than that practice squad linebacker did in 2015, right in his face. is bad. When I list these teams that he has to play in the middle of the year, just envision their pass rush. Maybe their secondary too, just if you're feeling wild. He plays Cleveland, so Miles Garrett and Zadarius Smith. Then he plays Baltimore, okay, that's all right. Then he plays Washington if Chase Young's healthy, and Sweat. That's pretty good pass rush. And then he gets San Francisco, Dallas, San Francisco, Philadelphia. That's brutal. And if he survives that, he gets to play TJ Watt and Steelers. I mean, where's the upside in that? You get 3 weeks of maybe what you got last year at Geno, and then it's just gonna be those 19 turnovers from last year. I probably double it. Like he's just gonna be horrible this year. And if you talk yourself into, oh, he has the weapons, JSN, Charbonnet, and Kenny Walker, and all the stuff, DK and Lockett. At the end of the day, he's Geno Smith, 32-year-old quarterback who just had a decent year last year. If you really, really look at it, you need to take a quarterback in that range, that ADP. Well, Rodgers is QB 16 right behind him, ADP 121. Goff is QB 17, ADP 127. I'd much rather have those guys. I'd much rather have proven vets that are going to, do what they've done for the last 10 years, perform at an MVP caliber in Rodgers, maybe. But Geno Smith, run for the hills. Don't talk yourself into it. Don't suffer from recency
So
bias.
I'm gonna give
'Cause
the
you're gonna get
man.
that.
I got to give the man his flowers. If you told me last season, Mahomes, Allen, Hurts, Burrow, of course, everybody does your top four guys, whatever. You told me the next on that list was Geno Smith. I wouldn't have believed you. No way, right? Below Geno Smith was Justin Fields. You more of a Justin Fields fan this year than Geno Smith?
Oh yeah, give me the running. I mean, just
Because you want
just
the
him as a
running.
runner. I'll take that 100%. 100%. I would take Justin Fields as just strictly the running. Say he doesn't get to throw a ball. I'll take it. I'll take it
17,
because I don't
17
think you're
TDs through
gonna get
Justin Fields and
you're
11
not gonna get a
picks.
fraction of what Geno gave you last year. No way.
Maybe, maybe not. But got to give the man his flowers what he did last year.
I'll give him some fake like plastic flowers from Dollar General that
So,
I still would I would still argue are overpriced for Geno Smith.
so here's the thing. I know you're going to be a little biased because I see the Eagles jersey hanging up. What
Oh
about
boy.
Dak Prescott? Are you taking Dak Prescott over him?
For the weeks he plays, sure. Yeah.
For the
For the
weeks he
weeks he
plays.
plays.
Okay, I like
Yeah.
that. I mean, he only missed 5 more games. Okay.
Yeah, and led the league in interceptions in the games that he did play. Leave that in for Dak.
Exactly. So you're definitely taking Geno Smith over Dak. Okay. You're taking him over what? Tua because of the injury concerns, right?
Yeah, but I mean, there's 32 other quarterbacks. I mean, there's 32 quarterbacks in the NFL.
Well, Brady's not there
We're
anymore. He
talking about the
retired.
bottom.
Derek Carr, he played better than Derek. You taking Derek Carr?
Um, the shining light to Derek Carr is the division he's playing in
Okay,
is
I'll
horrible.
give you that. You need
They
to.
have the easiest schedule in the NFL this year.
Listen,
I mean,
listen. Before we start fighting, okay, that division's getting better, okay. But he does. That division is kind of bad.
you placing your future on Atlanta to make playoffs or win the division? You placing that in DraftKings yet?
I'm placing my future on them making playoffs. And if they
Yeah.
don't make playoffs, they better tank. I'm telling you for Caleb. They better tank. And once we get a QB, I want to see how Ritter does. But if they don't make it, they just need to collapse so we can get that QB we need. And I feel like that team's going to take off. But you got to give Gino the respect. He hasn't started many games. He's been a backup for a while now, right? Besides
Yeah,
New York, he got a couple starts and then they got rid of him real quick. He
I'm
found his
pretty
home in
sure he.
Seattle. I think no, he's not going to be your starting guy if you don't want him to be. But I feel like he can be that top 10 QB though. Still,
Uh, let's just move on to your pick. Let's move on. We're not going to agree.
so my number one pick here, it's a little controversial as well because there's many different factors into it, and let me explain. My number one is Miles Sanders. Okay, ADP 67, running back 20. Had a great year last year with the Eagles. Finished last year with 1,300 yards on the ground, 11 TDs. I don't see him repeating that whatsoever in Carolina. Everything is new in Carolina, like I said before. Coaching, the system, QB, you name it. Last year, 17% of the target share towards the running backs. Um, you're going to say, oh, TK, they got a new coach. Well, Frank Wright from the Colts, same thing. They don't throw dump downs to their running backs often. So I think they're going to produce the exact same workload as those Carolina backs. So you're going to see a similar role with that. And my biggest thing with Miles Sanders is nothing to do with him. It's everything to do with Bryce Young. Bryce Young is giving me Tua vibes. Um, you can call it what it is. People called me crazy about Tua, the whole tank for Tua thing, and now look at him. You should have took Herbert. Um, I'm getting the same things with Bryce Young. Small QB. He looks really undersized there. He needs to put on some mass, get some hit the weights a little bit. That way, those hits don't take a toll on him, just like they're going to take a toll on Tua. Um, and that's the biggest thing. Unless I know Bryce Young's the franchise QB from day one, where you're like, okay, this kid can play. He's the real deal. I'm fading Miles Sanders until I see that week one. As soon as you see those rookie, like, okay, maybe it takes him to week two, but once it gets past week three, week four, get rid of Miles Sanders. There's no more. There's no more QB options where the reads are gone now. So that's a big play into it. Bryce Young's not known for running the ball, so more eyes are going to be on Miles Sanders as well in the backfield. So I'm fading Miles Sanders. I'm not going to say completely, but mostly because that whole offense is so new and you don't know what you're getting over there. It's a mixed bag over there of the offensive weapons and players and coaches and everything. It's crazy. Well, good thing I can say about a division rival, their defense is pretty solid.
Of course, J.C. Horn, real solid. Um, my favorite part about you picking this is that I get to talk about the Eagles. Um, Miles Sanders owes every penny of that contract to the Eagles' offensive line. Every penny to Jalen Hurts, every penny to AJ Brown. Um, the Eagles were by far the best team in the first half of every football game they played last year. And if you watched everybody else's production on the team dipped in the second half because they were up by 20 and they just ran the ball the rest of the game. That's what they did all season. And that is the lone reason Miles Sanders did anything. The year before that, he had no touchdowns. None. They made it a priority to give him some touchdowns this year. Like, he's not a PPR guy. He doesn't catch the ball. They don't like I they were saying that that might be his role going to Carolina, be a three down back and do that. Well, I mean, he really hasn't done it in his career. Like he's just going to start now on a worse team. Um, they say, well, Chuba Hubbard is from the previous regime. He's not Frank Reich's guy. They're going to move on from him. That's why they brought Miles in. I think Carolina is going to find out why the Eagles fans have cursed his name for the last 4 years. He's not that good. He's not. Like he's like we got Rashad Penny and Swift and like Boston Scott and Kenneth Gainwell. Or yeah. And it's just I'm out of words. I don't have any words. Like people that think that Miles Sanders is good, he's just not good. Never been good. Um,
And
yeah,
to hit
I
on
and
how he's not a
people that
receiver,
think that you're wrong are wrong. They're really wrong because this is might be your best pick you've ever made ever.
and to add to your receiving woes there with him, uh, last year receiving with Jalen Hurts, he was targeted 26 times, has 20 catches for 78 yards. So he's not.
And that was probably career highs. I
So he's not a
guarantee
receiving
it.
back whatsoever. He might get obviously there's no way but up from that, to be honest, over in
Hey, did you
Carolina.
see him in the Super Bowl? 2 carries for like -3 yards. That's what you're getting. That's Miles Sanders. 1,300 yards rushing last year was the Eagles' offensive line. You could have did that. Eagles' offensive line were moving people. Just watch highlights of Jason Kelsey running 30 yards down the field, just cleaning safeties, going next level.
He's back for his last year here, so hopefully
Dude,
it's a
Miles
good one
Sanders.
for
I'm irrationally upset that we even talked about Miles Sanders.
I thought it would give you a chance to talk about the Eagles, so I thought you'd be happy about that portion, but I was wrong.
Yeah, it just made me mad. I hate Miles Sanders. I even when he's good, I hate Miles Sanders.
But he did finish. Where do you finish here among running backs? Do you have it on your sheet there? 15th with 12.7 points per game. So you can expect those numbers to drop. Um, and again, maybe that's where you take a receiver, maybe a tight end since you're not taking Kittle from previous takes.
Yeah.
But that wraps up our love them and leave them section. Vanny, why don't you wrap this up for us?
Yeah, guys. Thanks for hanging out with us. Thanks for sticking it out, and things got a little hairy there at the end. But
Little tempers
this
flared.
is yeah, yeah, it got cooked a little while. This is our edition of Love 'em or Leave 'em. Five players from each of us to break up with in 2023. Whether you agree or not, a lot of info to break down for you. But this is our chance to let you know. But now is your chance to let us know. Let us know who you're rocking with. Polls will be available on social media. But yeah, you know, engage with us there, interact, share with any, crazy uncles or friends that you think are into fantasy football. Tell them check us out. We're in the middle of kind of the dead space of fantasy football, but drafts are about to be coming. Just hang out with us, and get an edge on the competition. And yeah, think that's about it for me, TK. Besides checking us out on social media and sharing everything, let us know. Let
Yep.
us know how we did.
You can find us on YouTube, Spotify, and Apple Podcasts. So go follow us. Make sure you have the notifications on for new content weekly. And we'll catch you on the next one.
Yeah, have a good one.